Welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast, where I, Genevieve Faulkner, share what I'm becoming aware of.
Hello and welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast. My name is Genevieve Faulkner, your host, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hi. So today I want to talk about healing addiction. So are you allowing things to shift and change, or are you needing sessions all of the time, telling yourself you're having change, while at the same time keeping yourself stuck in a loop of no change? So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I had an old teacher of mine from 15 years ago put a post on Facebook with regards to healing work. And she was kind of saying that healing work is not required. You can simply just quantum leap into a different reality. And this is somebody that has built a multi-million-dollar business in healing work, right? And so I was a little perplexed by her statement, and I was kind of like sitting with it and looking at it, and I can see some of the points of view that she had. And I also disagree with some of the things that she was saying in that post. So I kind of just wanted to express a few things, because I think that it is an important thing to acknowledge and look at with regards to, you know, if you're in the conscious space of working on yourself to be able to create a different reality for yourself or achieve your goals, then it is important to look at whether or not you're using healing work as a way of keeping yourself limited. So what do I mean by healing addiction? Now, there is a difference between just, knowing you need something to kind of shift and change the energy, and using a system, a modality, a healer as a way of keeping yourself in a cycle of wrongness. Okay. So when you're functioning from a healing addiction, you need sessions. It's just like any other addiction. So you need sessions like you would need cigarettes or like you would need alcohol. Like you're heavily reliant on the sessions. And there's this constant place of wrongness, right? You're constantly seeing yourself as not enough, and you're constantly looking at how it is, what you need to fix in order to have the power that you need to have in order to create the change that you want, right? Now, when you've got something like that going on, it's almost like, in a way, you can't sit with yourself. You can't be with yourself. So there can be this need, so dynamic. You're willing to spend all the money you have in order to create the change, while at the same time not choosing what it is that you need to choose in order to create that change. Okay. So that is very different to actually requiring healing in order to create the reality that you would like to create. Now, with regards to what she said with quantum leaping, I think that, I think that with quantum leaping, in order to be able to do that, like literally with your mind, meditate and energetically bring yourself and your body into a different reality to be able to manifest something, there has to be a level of safety within to be able to do that. Like, you've got to be relaxed enough. You've got to trust yourself enough. You've got to trust the universe enough to be able to have that kind of leap, right? A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people are not there. And so that's where I disagree with what it is that she was saying, because if you've got that, by all means, that's all that's required. And then it's choosing from that space. And that's a very important part of creating a different reality for yourself. Okay. When there's a healing addiction, it's more like, I need the session. And you can get into your head of thinking that's the choice that you need to make in order to create the change. That's not the choice, okay? There'll be other choices that are required that you're not making, that you're in avoidance to, and that's what's creating that cycle, right? So there are a lot of people that can quantum leap. When you're not there, there's a reason why you're not there. People who are stuck in trauma, they're not all the time going to be able to quantum leap. And the reason for that is because when you've got a lot of trauma, the brain will try to protect you, or the subconscious will try to protect you by stopping you from being able to move forward, because it will have the points of view that if you move forward, you're going to experience what it is that's traumatized you already. Because what will happen in trauma is there's a freeze response. The moment you've frozen, a part of you has not experienced everything that you've or it's not processed everything that has happened past that point. And so it will be in resistance to moving forward for that reason, right? And it can also have the point of view that if you move forward, you're going to recreate it or have something like it happen again, right? So when you've got that kind of programming, you're not necessarily going to be able to quantum leap because it's not safe. You don't know, that unknown place isn't a safe place for you. There's work to be done first. There's shifting and releasing of that trauma in order to have that level of safety where you can leap. When you're functioning from the healing addiction, there's a few things to look at. So I'm just going to kind of go through this with you guys. So first of all, you want to look at whether or not you're in a fight or flight response, right? So with the trauma, if you've got a lot of trauma, if you're not actively shifting and changing the trauma in the sessions and you're working on other things, you might be in a fight or flight response because that's how your body's learnt to survive, right? If you're going through a lot of stress in your life and you're not giving yourself the space to regulate your nervous system, to land, to kind of let your body know that you're safe, it's going to keep releasing those hormones or those chemicals that make you be in that fight or flight response, okay? And so then your brain's functioning in this place of you've just got to get out of the way of the threat, right? And so it can go to the place of thinking that you need the sessions for that reason. If you're in that stressed out state, there are times where a healing session is going to help, right? So what I'm saying here isn't, like a rigid point of view about the right and wrongness of the way in which you should do things. Everything, every moment requires question, and it requires you to tap into your awareness about what is required, right? So is there a fight or flight response that you're stuck in? So is there a lack of safety? Is the healing session required to get that safety, or are there other things that you can do in order to reset your system? Can you just be with yourself? Can you do some meditation? Can you, go for a walk in nature or draw a bath? Is there some sort of fantasy ideal about what you think you should be that you're not allowing yourself to be? Because sometimes we can have this kind of idea of what we should be or how we should be functioning, and it's not grounded in reality. So there's a lack of kind of acceptance about where you are now, and a willingness to be with that requires this. It's almost like a dismissive, perfectionist type energy of, part of that not enough stuff, right? So you want to look at whether or not you're functioning from an unrealistic fantasy or idea of who you should be. And if that's the case, you might want to kind of start to practice some self-love exercises, because it could be that, you have that idea of what you should be based upon, ways in which that you were treated as a child. There can be other reasons why also, but practicing self-love, learning to actually praise yourself instead of criticizing yourself, can be part of the way in which to shift that, right? So the other thing you want to look at is, what are you aware of in your environment that you haven't acknowledged? Because sometimes we can think that we need healing all the time, because we might have an attunement to the people around us that need healing. Or it might be, particularly if you've grown up with someone with an addiction. When you have grown up with somebody with an addiction, you can be highly attuned to people with addictions. And so you can be picking up on all of their intensity of need, right? But then you filter that through your own subconscious and your programming, and you don't want the substances. So then you think, oh my God, I've got to heal myself. Oh my God, I need. So you start having sessions. So acknowledging your awareness, acknowledging who and what you're attuned to can help you to kind of, again, land in your reality in a way that stops you functioning from that intensity of need with regards to choosing sessions or, having swaps all the time. Are you being gaslit, or have you been gaslit? Because people, in my experience, that have had that kind of healing addiction type energy, they often have been gaslit. They've often given up their sense of themselves, their sense of them being the source, in a way that, creates them constantly needing to fix themselves, because part of gaslighting is, where somebody will make you wrong all the time in order to get you to submit to their reality, right? And so when someone's been gaslit, whether it's the present reality or the past reality, they can begin to internalize that and gaslight themselves. And when they're gaslighting themselves, what they're doing is they're seeing themselves through that lens of wrongness. And then they're projecting that all the time. And that creates an inability to fully acknowledge the change that you are creating. And instead, you'll constantly focus on the parts where you're not creating change. Okay. So part of the antidote to that, again, like sometimes everything that I'm saying, could get better with some healing. But part of the healing addiction is working on the things that aren't necessarily what's required to change in order to create the result that you want. Whereas if you're wanting to actually create real change, you've got to be willing to work on the issues that are going to create the change. So if there is an element of gaslighting, undoing yourself from the gaslighting by having some sort of healing work can help. But also it's a practice, like with people that have been gaslit, there is kind of a practice that you've got to get into about, being in question about, is this my reality or is this the gaslighter's reality? Like, what is my truth? Always checking in with yourself. What is my truth here, right? What's good about me that I haven't acknowledged? How can I praise myself? What change have I created that I could really acknowledge today? Getting out of the mindset all of the time of seeing yourself as wrong is part of what's required if you've been gaslit. Now, this one's a big one, okay? These two are big ones. So what action are you afraid of taking that you need to take? Okay, so when we're in that healer's addiction, and I have been there for the first few years of theta healing, I practiced, I think I did 3 swaps a week, and they were, long swaps, like 2 hours each day. So like 3 half days a week, doing sessions with other practitioners to shift and change. And I don't see that as a wrongness, because for me, I think that was part of the experience I needed in order to get really clear on a lot of the algorithmic type patterns that are within the subconscious mind, so that I can assist people to shift and change them. So there was a blessing and a gift in that. But I am also aware that there was an imbalance with regards to the energy of where I was at and what I was doing and choosing and what I was needing from sessions. And that's why I'm speaking to this also, because I've been there, right? I know what this feels like. And I also know what it's like beyond it. And how to get there. So for me, there was an element of some things that I wasn't choosing, because I felt like I didn't have the power to choose it. So I'd given my power away in relationship in a way where I felt like I needed the other person to choose things before I could create the change. Now, this meant that during that time, there was so much focus on doing clearing work and healing work and changing belief systems with regards to relationships, because I had decided that if I changed enough, the dynamic would change in the relationship and they would change, and then we'd make the choice that I wanted to be made, right? That's not how this works, okay? When somebody's, this is what I believe anyway. I do not believe that you can always just do healing work to create the perfect relationship with somebody. It doesn't work that way. we all have choice, right? Now, there is truth that when you do belief work, sometimes the relationships will change, because the fixed points of view that you have within the structure of your subconscious can be contributing to creating people behaving in a certain way with you. So when you do the belief work, you create space that if they're willing to choose change, they can step into more of their being, and that creates, an ability to move forward and create something different with them. Not everyone has that willingness to actually change. And I think that when there's a healing addiction, there can be elements of codependency within the person that is creating the healing addiction. There's an element of powerlessness in codependency, right? You've given your power away to another. You're thinking that they're having to choose something in order to, have your needs taken care of. And so that's what gets mirrored in the healer's addiction. You can't change everyone. And no matter how much work you do, sometimes the choice you have to make is the willingness to go beyond the relationship that you have. Or maybe it's not even to end the relationship, but it's the willingness to make the choices that may make people in your life not as happy. They might get triggered with you shifting the order of things, right? So one of the things to look at if you're suffering from a healer's addiction is, or healing addiction, is have I given my power over to someone? Am I waiting for them to change before I allow myself to choose something? And if that's the case, it's not more healing that you need. It's making the choices that you're in resistance to making, right? So who are you trying to change? Why are you trying to change them? What are you going to get out of them changing? If they don't change, can you still have this person in your life in the way that they are now? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Because when there's that constant need to change things based upon wanting to get others to change, you're just going to drain your resources, okay? A lot of the time. Sometimes there are, again, use your awareness. There may be possibilities, but a lot of the time, it's more that you've got to make the change to move beyond where you've allowed the relationship to control you. Okay, so you might be wondering, how do I know if I need a session or whether or not it's just a healing addiction? So if there's trauma, by all means, that trauma is going to need to be worked on. If there's physical things showing up in your body, that is usually an indication that there is a lot of energy that has been suppressed, that is locked in your body, that's caused your body to have to communicate through illness. So a lot of the time, healing can contribute when you're, having all kinds of body issues. If there's some sort of target that you want to manifest, by all means, do the digging work or do healing work. If you're not doing theta healing, digging is a part of theta healing. But know that in order to manifest something different, choice has to be made. It's never just, being in the energy of, working on the belief systems and not changing what you need to change. Choice has to be made. If you're wanting sessions before you're landing from the last one, that's usually an indication that you're in that addiction cycle. So, if you're feeling that intensity of need and that it's not coming from your awareness of what's required, that's where almost forcing yourself to land with yourself is what's really required. Healing work often, what's good is to do some work, sit with yourself, allow it to integrate, look at what it is that you need to choose from that space. And sometimes that choice will be, okay, I need another session. But sometimes it's actually, this space has opened up. Now I know what to choose next. I need to choose that. And then when you choose that, then it might be that there's all sorts of things that get triggered from that choice. And then you need the other session. So there is no wrongness in choosing session after session, but it's looking at where you're choosing that from, what's the energy that you're choosing that from, and being brutally honest with yourself about that. Because, you know, no healer I know wants to keep people in well, there are probably many healers out there that do, but no, you know, wants to keep people in an addictive cycle, right? Keeping them in that place of stuckness. That's no fun. Healing, like being a healer, it's fun when people receive the change. That contributes lightness to the healer's world also. When someone's not receiving and they can't seem to shift, you know, sometimes it's a great challenge, but also it diminishes the possibilities. So not as fun. Now, the reason why I say that is because if you are in an addictive type energy with healing and you're needing sessions all the time, the other thing that you need to look at is your relationship with the healer, right? Now, there's a couple of things here, because one of the things that we sometimes do is project our relationship with our parents onto the healers that we have. So if you're seeing a particular healer and you've got unresolved attachment issues with your parents, you might be creating that with your healer. And what that creates is this kind of like, you know, anytime you're feeling dysregulated, if you haven't fully learned how to regulate yourself, anytime you're feeling dysregulated, you're going to need that healer. You're going to need to get in touch with them because they've become your surrogate parent. That isn't actually needing the healing. Well, it's actually, I mean, you can work on the healing, the belief systems around the attachment and heal the attachment, but it's not needing the healing for the reason that you think you need the healing, right? Because in that situation, a lot of the time, you'll have all sorts of stuff coming up, and you'll think you'll need healing for it, but you don't need healing about that. You actually need healing for the attachment, which is, you know, getting you to be able to function in a way where you don't need somebody else to feel safe and okay, right? So looking at whether or not you're functioning from an anxious attachment style and whether or not you're needing the healer, but not because you're needing healing, but you're needing the connection with the healer to feel safe. That's something to look at as well. And then the other element is that, you know, healers are people. They have their stuff. Some of them may have, you know, all sorts of point of view about needing money. Some of them may have a need of being a great healer or something else, right? That they may be unconsciously or consciously courting you to need healings so that you keep coming back, right? So checking in with yourself and asking, you know, if you're feeling like you're needing a session, what are you needing it for? What's the actual truth here? If you were brutally honest with yourself, what's really required in order to move forward? And is it the choice that you're about to make? So I hope that kind of brings some awareness to all of that. Yeah, I do think that like quantum leaping is awesome, but it does require a level of having your own being first in order to be able to do it. So I think that, you know, for those of you that are starting out on your journey and you would like to get to the place where you can do that, I do actually think things like theta healing or psychic development or meditation work are things that are going to contribute, even, you know, nervous system type, you know, stuff that's going to help you regulate your nervous system is going to assist you to get to the place where you can choose that. But I think that it is a journey to get there for a lot of people because they've had all sorts of experiences that are unprocessed. So if you're wanting to develop any psychic ability or work on your belief systems, work on healing, or, you know, just claiming the weird capacities that you have beyond normal, you're welcome to check out the classes that I offer on my website. If you have any questions about this, feel free to ask me. Leave a comment below the video. And also, if there is anything else that you want me to do a video about, like, let me know. Thanks for listening, guys.